coffee or a cup of tea, or refresh your water. The same is true for Robin and Judith and Philip, who are joining us virtually as well. Starting in just a minute. Today's going to be fun and silly, I promise.
Fun and silly.
Fun and silly. Right. Good morning, Debbie.
Well, let's talk about stubborn.
Oh. We're not doing stoning. That's no fun.
That's a really bad way to die.
It is. I know. I've considered it.
You mean you've been considered for it, or you've considered doing it?
All right, it's 11 o'clock. Hi, everybody. I love the fact that we have one Calvinistan in the room and one joining us on Zoom. Right, that way you can talk to each other. Jack just came in. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So it's good to be with you for Parsha Kitei Say, our Parsha perspectives. With gratitude to Rabbi Laila, who graciously allowed me the opportunity to come teach this morning, so she could be present for her son at the preschool because it's his birthday and he's all Abba, and that starts in half an hour. And so when she asked if I would teach, I said absolutely, because I said to her a few weeks ago, I'm jealous that she created herself a teaching opportunity. Because we know Rabbi Dan is very protective of Torah study on Saturday, and so I'm feeling like I'm a pinball trying to find some time to teach. But having said all of that,
I'll go to yours.
What's that?
I'll go to yours.
Thank you, Spencer. Let's jump into Parsha Kitei Say. Can someone tell me what you think or know to be the most important mitzvah in the Torah?
Welcoming the stranger.
Welcoming the stranger from Bobby Collinson. Visiting the sick Liliana Abramson. Honoring your parents from Tereshin. Loving God from Hilda.
Studying the Torah.
Studying Torah from Spencer. Any other thoughts?
Saving a life.
Saving a life from Robin. All good answers. Finding a what, Susan? Finding a pen is not a mitzvah in the Torah, but you can go ahead. Anyone want to know the answer?
Yeah.
We don't have it. Right, the Torah does not specify, it doesn't specify the tradition which is the most important Torah. We can obviously suggest that there are some that seem to, no offense back there.
All the way down the other side.
There are certain mitzvot that we obviously give precedence, right? Robin suggested saving a life, because we know, for example, that saving a life supersedes the mitzvah of Shabbat. So individual mitzvot, we can say there are moments when they take precedence over another, right? So for example, there obviously is the mitzvah to rest and not do work on Shabbat. And if a baby boy should be born on Friday night or Saturday day, when should the bris be? The following Saturday during Shabbat. And the performance of a bris, even if some of those behaviors might violate Shabbat, because the Torah specifies that it has to happen on the 8th day, it takes precedence. But these are mitzvah, individual mitzvah to mitzvah relationships. The Torah does not specify, and the rabbis don't specify which one is the most important. They are all important in their own way. And in this week's Torah portion, Kitei Say, we are blessed with receiving more mitzvot in this Torah portion than in any of the others. Anyone know the number? 74. Carol's close. 74 mitzvot are presented in this week's Torah portion. We're going to focus on 2 of them. They are interrelated. And while the Torah does not suggest which is the most important mitzvah, the Talmud does suggest which is the least important. And it is this one. So we're going to share the screen now. Hang on, I'm working with 2 devices and 3 screens, so give me a moment. If along the road you chance upon a bird's nest in any tree or on the ground with fledglings or eggs, and the mother sitting over the fledglings or on the eggs, do not take the mother together with her young. Let the mother go and take only the young, in order that you may fare well and have long life. So as we jump into this learning of this mitzvah together, let's begin with the bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher ishad mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe. You made us holy by giving us commandments and commanded us to engage with words of Torah. Okay. Clarice.
It's my 50th Torah. I chanted that. I did, 60 years old.
Wonderful.
Oh,
Wonderful.
50, at 50.
That was like just like 2 weeks ago.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, what are the two mitzvot that we read in these two verses? Spencer.
More or less, don't take a mom from an S.
Other ideas. Susan.
It would be cool to do that. And by shooing a mother away, she doesn't see that you're taking it.
A good answer to a different question. What are the two mitzvot? The two commandments
Don't do
that are in this verse. So Susan, say it again.
do it.
Don't do what?
Don't take the egg. With the mother, take an egg.
Don't take the mother along with her young. That's one of the mitzvot. What's the other one? Let the mother go. Right? A positive and a negative. Let the mother go. Don't take the mother with the young. Those are the mitzvot. Mitzvot are very specific. They are behaviors that usually, in grammatical terms, come in a command form. Do this. Don't do that. Sometimes it tells us, do not. If we look at the end of verse 6, what does it say? Do not take the mother along with her young. And then the second mitzvah is in the first few words of the next verse, let the mother go and take only the young. One thing we are not supposed to do, one thing we are supposed to. And in the counting of the 613, that's two of them, not one. Okay? The question that I didn't ask, but that Susan answered correctly, is why this? What's the purpose? What's the instruction? What's the reasoning? What's the moral undergirding of this mitzvah? Susan, you want to say your answer again? Why do we have this?
It would be cruel
It would be cruel. To whom?
to the mother.
What would be cruel?
To steal.
How did Susan answer her own answer?
To steal her young from her. This way, if she's gone, she doesn't see that you've taken.
You just said the last important word because you missed it the first time. It's not that you take the young, it's her seeing you take the young. That's the cruel part. We're gonna take the young. I had eggs for breakfast today. We're gonna take the fledglings, we're gonna take the eggs. That in itself is, well, that's the circle of life. The cruelty is in allowing the mother to see that happen. So that is one thing that we're not supposed to do, is we're supposed to make sure the mother is out of sight. So she has the experience of coming back to see her nest emptied, but she doesn't have to watch them be taken away. To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure which one is worse. They're both pretty bad, but I can appreciate that not having to stand witness to it might be better for her sight. Okay. What's another thing? Another moral grounding that we can take from these two verses. Clarice. So I think that's implied in what Susan said. It's absolutely correct, but it's not something additional. It's more of the same, right? We look at verse 7. Let the mother go and take only the young, right? There's a scenario, there's a thing here that is sort of not spoken about directly, but is implied in this moment, right? You are walking down the road. You are scavenging for food. You see a mother bird sitting on a nest with fledglings and perhaps an unhatched egg. What are your choices here? Assuming you're going to take something.
You're not
Mother.
gonna take the mother because the babies would die without her.
Okay, so you could take the mother and leave the babies. Option 1, Spencer.
Take the babies, take the egg.
You could take the babies and the egg and leave the mother. Option 2.
One egg. You understand?
You can leave something behind.
Take everything.
You can take everything. Thank you, Meredith. You can take everything, right? And that is implied as we're not supposed to do in verse 7, which is take only the young, right? So, in addition to sparing the mother of her pain of seeing her children taken away from her, or at least reducing some of the pain by not making her watch this awful thing happen to her. There's another element which is, but leave something behind. Right? Now, this verse doesn't specify whether it would be preferable or not to take the mother and leave the eggs and fledgling versus taking the fledglings or eggs and leave the mother. Right? Typically, when I'm hungry, I need something more than just the fledgling. Right? How many of you eat a whole chicken or had a whole chicken on your kitchen table for Shabbat dinner before? That's not a fledgling. That's not an egg. That's a mama bird. Right? So there's some moral grounding for, if you are going to be carnivorous, to take the whole mother. And that is an option we should think about here. But there's another option, which is to take everything, which also seems to be precluded, at least in the second verse, when it says, take only the young. Right? Why might that be? Well, you're killing a whole family at this point, right? A lot of our laws around eating of animals is very concerned with there being a continued path of life, right? The animals that we eat, for example, are all herbivores, right? Right? The birds in particular, right? The land animals with the chewing of the cud, well, if you're chewing your cud, you have to be herbivore because it's only the grass you need the cud to chew up from, right? Fish, fins and scales, they don't really understand fish that well. And then the birds that fly, and then the Torah gives us a list of birds that we can't eat.
Right.
And what they all have in common is they are birds of prey, right? They are birds of prey. That we are wanting to manage the amount of death that we're causing, which is sort of one element to this. But the rabbis also see this in the frame of the mitzvah around milk and meat. That there's just something about mixing multiple generations of a family, of an animal family in one meal that just doesn't sit right. It just feels a little bit too gluttonous. Rebbitzin Levin.
So, this is one of my major points, obviously, that shall not cook thy calf in thy mother's milk, we got that.
Doesn't say calf, it says kid.
Kid, sorry.
Different
So
species.
now, thank you, so now, how can you eat the chicken with the egg? I don't understand that,
So you don't here. It's one or the other.
but we never talk about it, I mean, we're talking about it today, in all my years. You're always like.
How can I split it? What's that?
You're making schnitzel and you dip that chicken.
I'll make you a bet. I'll make you a deal. You show me the chicken who gives milk that I can't eat with cheese, and I'll answer your question.
Fine.
All right, moving on.
The whole fish conversation, which we don't have to have a conversation. How is fish pond? Just throw that out there, food, your thoughts.
I said a moment ago, they didn't understand fish very well.
Correct.
Moving on. All right. So we have these couple of moral groundings here, right? Which I think are really compelling, right? Not to cause unnecessary mental anguish, even to an animal, not to destroy multi-generational. We see these spoken about in other parts in Torah, at least alluded to. And the rabbis, under no obligation to declare which is the least important mitzvah, point to this one. We're going to explore what. Starting in Mishnah Chulin.
Asking a pertinent question.
Oh, what kind of question?
Pertinent.
You can ask that.
Yeah.
Oh, but we're studying the least important mitzvah instead of.
Moving on. If the mother bird hanging was hovering over the eggs or fledgling in the nest, when its wings are touching the eggs or fledgling, remember, these are the rabbis of the 2nd century. They want to know, how do I know if she's hovering? How close does she have to be? How far away does she need to be for me to be free to take the meal that I want? And they want to know, last night was the kickoff of football. What my father didn't know about the rabbinic life was when I was a little kid, and I was asking him how much of the football had to be touching the goal line to count as a touchdown. He didn't realize I was asking a rabbinic question. He thought I was just being a nudnik. She's saying the same thing. One is obligated, so when its wings are touching the eggs or the fledgling, one is obligated to send away the mother. When its wings are not touching the eggs or the fledglings in the nest, one is exempt from sending away the mother. So if there's no physical contact, then you do not need to shoo away the mother bird. What does that imply to us about our understanding of the mitzvah? Marilyn.
On the eggs, so on the fledgling, the next generation will have.
But she's not, right? No, the second sentence is when its wings are not touching the eggs or fledglings, if there's no physical contact between the mother bird and the eggs, you are free to take them. To me, that scratches against something we said a moment ago, which is, Susan, what's the purpose of this mitzvah?
It's very cruel to take.
It's cruel to let the mother do what?
Watch.
Watch. She can still watch. If the burden for hovering is physical contact, she could be right there. And if you can slip her hand underneath and take it out, then she's watching this happen. Let's go. I'm just putting it out there as a thing for us to wrestle with. Even if there's only one fledgling or one egg, one is obligated to send away the mother. As stated, if the bird's nest happens before you, indicating that one is obligated to send away the mother bird from the nest in any case, right? So the number of eggs and or fledglings in the nest does not affect your obligation, right? You must shoo her away. The lack of physical contact between the mother and the fledgling or the eggs does seem to change your obligation. We're going to keep going. If there were fledglings capable of flying, or unfertilized eggs from which a fledgling will not hatch, one is exempt from sending away the mother bird from the nest, as it is stated, and the mother bird is resting upon the fledglings or upon the eggs. What have we nuanced here? Chicken farms, okay. All kinds of machines and plum machines, yeah, expensive. They didn't imagine that, by the way, 1,800 years ago, a mission of holding about chicken farms.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I think they are referencing that, those birds and fledglings that can't fly or won't be able to fly, and the eggs that are unfertilized won't live anyway.
Well, yeah, so it's fledglings that will fly. It's fledglings who can fly or unfertilized eggs. If that's the scenario, this verse is not invoked. We are not in this scenario if they're unfertilized eggs, because there's no life in that. And if the fledglings can fly,
They're too old. So
they're not that they're too old, but there's an expectation they can, frankly, they can handle themselves, right? They can fly away.
How would a person passing a tree, seeing the nest,
Uh-huh.
know whether or not it's a fertilized egg?
That's a great question. I have the same one, right? You know how I know they're unfertilized? When I crack them open and there's no blood inside. How else would I know? How do I actually smell? Costco doesn't tell me which ones are fertilized or not. They just sell me 5 dozen in a box. We got a lot of kids. We buy 10 dozen at a time. We go through them like water. From the juxtaposition of the fledglings and the eggs, one derives, just as the fledglings are living, so too must the eggs be capable of producing living fledglings. This excludes unfertilized eggs, which cannot produce a living fledgling. And furthermore, just as the eggs need their mothers to hatch them, so too the fledglings must be those that need their mothers. Okay? So what's interesting in all this is, in one breath, the Mishnah is pulling together the multi-generational relationship, right? That the mothers have responsibilities to the fledglings have responsibilities to the mothers, the fertilized eggs as well. That's getting tightened. While the other moral concern about the cruelty seems to be getting loosened, because they're making it pretty easy, pretty lenient as to what my responsibility is. My responsibility is an air gap, right? As long as there's no physical contact between the bird and the eggs and the fledglings, I can take them according to the mission, right? that does not seem, based on how you all read the verse, and me, by the way, in keeping with that broader ethical expectation of preventing cruelty, but we're not done. This excludes pleasure to give a flying if one sent away the mother bird and it returned to rest on the eggs. Even if it returned 4 or 5 times, one is obligated to send it away again. You shall send shalech tishalach. If there's this in the Hebrew, which I didn't share with you, there is this grammatical form of a doubling, right? It's the same verb in 2 forms back to back, which is like bold, underlined, circled with a red light, with a red pen, right? When Moses asks to see God's face, or oftentimes the phrase in Hebrew is mot yamutz, will surely die. You will surely die. You will surely send away the mother. The double bird indicates that one must send away the mother bird multiple times if needed, right? You send away the mama bird, get that air gap, grab some eggs, she comes back, send her away again. You gotta make sure every single time you put your fingers in that nest, the mom is not sitting on the eggs or on the fledgling. If one said, I am hereby taking the mother and sending away the offspring, he is obligated to send away the mother, even if he sent away the offspring. You shall send the mother. Right? It's got to be the mother who was sent away. If one sent away the mother and took the offspring and then returned to the mother's nest, and thereafter the mother returned, rested upon them, one is exempt from sending away the mother bird.
The bird can come home back to the kids are gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about empty nesters.
There we go. Where does that phrase come from? All right. So there's a conversation that continues in the Talmud. It's essentially the same line, which is, how do I know if I can? How do I know if I can't? I don't want to get into how we know they're fertilized. It's weird. All right. Moving forward in our tradition a little bit, Devarim Rabbah, right? Midrash Rabbah, late first millennium, answering some of the big questions that the Torah raises. The structure of Devarim Rabbah is a little unusual to us. If I was to give a lecture on the meaning of this verse, as I kind of am today, what did I start with? The verse. The structure of a lot of the midrashim is actually the opposites. They end with the verse that they're describing. They open up a conversation somewhere else in the tradition, and they raise a series of questions or raise a scenario, and they raise a kashya, a hardness, a question, a wondering. And the wondering is elucidated and clarified with our verse. Okay? So, what do I mean by that? Well, what I'm about to introduce to you is going to lead us to this verse as the answer to the question the scenario is going to raise. Okay? So, if you're wondering as we start, what in the world does this have to do with birds and eggs and nests? We'll get it. This is what the verse said. Lest you delineate a path of life, her tracks wander, you will not know. This is from Proverbs. Okay? Proverbs says, so that you can delineate a path, tracks might wander, and you will know. Lest be complicated, right? We may not know the right way. Okay. What is meant by lest you tifales delineate a path of life? Well, Rabbi Laila Haas said, the Holy One Blessed said, do not sit and evaluate the mitzvot of the Torah. As it is stated, he weighed mountains with a scale, pelas, in Isaiah 40:12, right? Don't ask the question, which mitzvah is more important. Don't delineate, right? There's something in here that we're seeing. There's something questionable about delineation. Unnecessary, perhaps even corrupt, which we get from this verse in Isaiah. Do not say, since this mitzvah is great, I will perform it, as its reward is substantial. But since that one is a minor mitzvah, I will not. Okay. What did the Holy One of Blessing do? God did not reveal to people what the reward granted for each and every mitzvah. So they would perform all the mitzvot without guile. So that they would, yeah. So God does not tell us which mitzvah is more important and doesn't tell us what reward you get mitzvah by mitzvah by mitzvah. Our rewards don't come because we did those mitzvot more than those mitzvot. Where does our reward come from?
All
The whole
year.
The whole, right? Our commitment to the mitzvot without guile as a whole. The mitzvot as a one idea system. There are mitzvot, we should fulfill them. That is how we are to be judged by the Holy One. From where do we get this? Well, from the first part of that verse from Proverbs, or the second word, her tracks wander, you will not know. It's not going to be clear which is the right path. It's not going to be clear which mitzvah is more important in the eyes of the Holy One. It's not for us to decide. It's not for us to ask. It's just for us to do. And not. All right, so now we have a mashal. Now we have a parable. All right, Spencer, you can ask.
If all the mitzvot are viewed as equal, why do we call this one the least?
Okay. To what is the matter comparable? To a king who hired laborers and took them into his orchard containing various trees. He was unspecific and did not reveal to them the wages for the different trees of the orchard. So they should not forsake working on those with minimal wages and go to work only on those with substantial wages. If you have orchards and you need your fruit picked, you are not going to pay, one way you can do it is you can pay per pound of various foods, right? But if I'm paying per pound of grapes and paying the same per pound of watermelons, where are my workers going to go do all the picking? The watermelons. Because for the same effort, I get a lot more pounds of fruits. Takes a lot of effort to pick a pound of grapes, very little effort for a pound of watermelon, right? One watermelon is what, 6 pounds, 7 pounds, 8 pounds, 9 pounds?
So that's.
In 10 seconds, I get 8 pounds worth of food. Grapes, that could be a half an hour, right? So if you are, now listen, in modern day farming, right, in high labor and farming, they usually are paid by the pound. Right, years ago, when I went out to Immokalee and met with the tomato pickers out there, they explained, how they pick and how much they need to pick and what's a full bushel and all that kind of stuff. Because the workers are paid by the piece. But they're all paid the same by the piece. They're all paid because they're all picking tomatoes. And so it's the same work per piece for each worker. So it's fair to pay them. But if you're a king who has an orchard of multiple fruits, you would not want to publicize or even work on a system where you're paying wages based on the piece, because you're going to influence which fruits get picked. And the very light and very, I don't know what the opposite of dense is, undense fruits are not going to be picked. Okay, that's the mashal, right? In the evening, he summons to each one and says, beneath which tree, which did you work? He said, I work beneath this one. He said, it's a pepper tree. You get a gold piece. Where did you work? I worked in this one. Oh, it's a half gold piece. It's a white blossom tree. Another one said, which did you work? Beneath this one. Oh, it's an olive tree. 200 zoos. Right? That's 100. It's 100 baby goats, by the way. Right? Todd God, yeah, my father bought for 2 zoos. That's 100 goats. Real story. They said to him, you should have informed us which tree had the abundant wages. We would have all picked the peppers if we knew we got a whole gold piece. And the king said, if I told you, how would my orchard been cultivated? Right? Now here's my problem. I think the king's mistreating the workers.
Yeah.
Right? And piecework is challenging. What's a more fair way to wage people? By hour. Right, exactly. Unless you can solve for the piecework like you do with the tomatoes, which is, we know about what it takes to pick a tomato, and everyone's working in tomatoes. So whether it's piece by piece or hour by hour, the workers are all being treated the same.
And in America, it's really food out well.
So, 2, the Holy One of Blessing did not reveal the reward for granting each of the mitzvot. Right? God doesn't want us to know which mitzvot in God's world merits us a better reward. Because God, like the king, because the king, wants us to be equally motivated to do which mitzvot? All of them. If you the original verse, you're right, Marilyn. The original verse says, "You may fare well and have a long way." That's a reward. A lot of the mitzvot say that. And spoiler alert, you may hear about some of this tonight from Rabbi Ashira. It's not clear what that means. Right? Fare well and live and have a long life. What does that mean? You did a mitzvah, but the reward is not so clear. Right? It's not clear. Is long life 40 years, 60 years, 80 years, 120, 350? Right? It's not clear. But you're right to point that out. All right. So, with the exception of two mitzvot, the one of the greatest difficulty and the one of the least difficulty. Honoring one's father and mother is of the greatest difficulty. Here you go, Marilyn, you ready? And the reward for which is the prolonging of one's days. As it says in Exodus, honor your father and mother, so your days will be prolonged. And the one of the least difficulty is the dispatching of the mother bird. And what is this reward? Prolonging of its days, as you will surely send the mother away and prolong your days. Right? So the question that you raised, the rewards are equal, even between what we're clarifying, what the Midrash is saying, not the most important, least important, but the most difficult to fulfill the mitzvah of honoring your parents is they're saying is the most difficult to fulfill. Right? Maybe not that it's hard, but it takes a lot of time and energy. And the easiest one to fulfill is this one. Which flies away. Right? How hard to scare away a bird? Not difficult at all. What's that?
Just on the bird.
The only person who struggles with this is Elmer Fudd. He's the only one who struggles to scare away Daffy Duck. And allows Daffy and Bugs to decide which hunting season it is. He's the only one. For everyone else, scaring away a bird is child's play. Right? Wile E. Coyote. Easy for him to scare away. Rotor's gone. It's keeping him around this hard. All right. So here we have in Midrash Rabbah this notion that the reward should not be our consideration. Because no matter how hard we work, from the easiest to fulfill mitzvah to the hardest to fulfill mitzvah, what's the reward? Prolonging our days. Prolonging our days. Now, in our tradition, especially in the Midrashim, they do not require that different answers to the same question be the same. They don't require the different answers mesh or gel. The answers can even be mutually exclusive. So, as we move into a next explanation, you can hold this in your head, but don't try to make the two of them work together, because they may not. Midrash Tehillim, right? Midrash on the book of Psalms. Right? By the way, I don't know what I'm saying. Do you see now what I talked about how I said the Midrashim start somewhere else and end at the verse?
Yeah.
Where do they end? At the verse. What's it? And then Israel exactly. Midrash Tehillim. I say to Hashem, you are my refuge and my fortress, and you I trust. My refuge is in your wings, and my fortress is the castle, my Lord. I trust in God, for God did not say to me, Asuli mikdash v'shakanti b'tocham, make for me a sanctuary and I will dwell among them. If God had, I would have trusted in it. In God's name, I pursue and cast down the wicked to Gehenna. What's Gehenna? Hellish. Ish. Also, this valley outside of the old city of Jerusalem. That's what they say. The Holy Spirit responds and tells me that God will save me from the trap. The hunter's fortress is in the wilderness, where he brings life into the world. With God's wings, God covers you. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, that he rewards anyone who deals with the truth of the Torah. The truth is the armor, the shield. This is all over the place. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that in the instrument of the truth, Torah is the vessel. Rabbi Yossi, no, that's it. No, there you go. The vessel that God gave to Israel at Sinai has written on it, do not fear the terror by night. Rabbi Barachi has said that some people are like a bird that flies and shoots like an arrow. Who will save you from the trap? The messenger of the nest will save you from the snare, as it is written. Will the trap be set for a bird on the ground when it's in a snare? And as it is written, if you come across a bird's nest in any tree or on the ground with young ones, and the mother bird is sitting on the young or on the eggs, do not take the mother bird. What is the trap supposed to be? I know that's a good question. What is this about? Make sense of this for me. I'm lost.
I am actually lost.
All right. What is the thing we are trying to avoid in this midrash?
Trying to avoid not obeying one of the mitzvot that is in the Torah.
That's always a good thing to work on. I think that there is something more specific in this particular midrash that is in line with that, but it's more specific. Spencer.
This is a guess. We're trying to avoid treating one mitzvah as more holy than another.
Okay. I would suggest that we had moved on to the comparative question rounds. Build me a sanctuary and I will dwell there. Anyone know that verse which I misquoted a moment ago and led you all on the wrong path?
Well,
Lasuli mitash v'shechanti b'tocham. Build me a sanctuary, build a sanctuary for me. Read what the verse says in this reading. God did not say to me, this is the third line, build a sanctuary for me and I will dwell there. That would have made a lot of sense. Build me a sanctuary and I will dwell in it. That's why people build sanctuaries for their gods. And remember what the verse actually says. Build me a sanctuary and I will dwell with Tocham. I will dwell among you. Thank you, Barry. And Downtown Jewish Academy. God did not say that in our relationship, God would be alone in a fortress, in a castle. Where did God promise God would dwell? Among us. Right? To do what? To protect us, to watch over us, to prevent us from being cast down like the wicked into Gehenna. The Holy Spirit responds and tells me that God will save me from the trap. Right? We are not going to get caught in some snare, in some trap like a bird. Why? Because God will protect us. God won't let us get trapped up. With God's wing, God covers us. God rewards those who deal with the truth of Torah. Truth is an armor and a shield. Torah is the vessel. The vessel that God gave to Israel is what? What's the vessel God gave Torah to Israel? What is the vessel? The plain word. Torah is the vessel that God gave us to Sinai that said, don't fear the terror by night. Some people are like a bird that flies and shoots like an arrow. Who will save you from the trap? If we are birds flying around and there are traps here and there, who's going to save us? God. Yeah. This notion of shooing away the bird, even these birds, who cares about them? God. whether there's a lot of mixed metaphors here. Don't kid yourselves. There's a lot of mixed metaphors. But this idea that just like God cares about the well-being of the birds, we are like birds who can get trapped. God's going to protect us. What's the protection? Well, God has a vessel. What's that vessel? That's Torah. If we follow Torah, what do we need to do? Build a sanctuary. If we build a sanctuary, what happens? God dwells among us. And God can be the refuge and the fortress. Right? It's not a physical fortress. If it was a physical fortress, it would have said, build me a sanctuary and I will dwell there. And who would enjoy the protections of the fortress? God. But what is the fortress? The world in which we live. Because we're told that God will dwell among us. And this protective spiritual fortress that God creates. It has no boundaries. It has no boundaries. It has no boundaries. Right? And even the birds are under God's protection. Right? This took us a little far. That was a little bit of a stretch. Midrash to Helen, they've already done all of Torah, they've already done all of the prophets, they're running out of ideas. But still, all right. Musar teaching. Kava Yashar. We are now moving into the 17th century. Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Kaidenover, one of the early Musar texts, the straight path. Rabbi Yossi of Pekin left a young son who would not allow anyone to approach his father's bed after his death, but stood by it himself, weeping over his father. Right? He's performing shmirah, staying with his father for the burial. But we know that normally when someone passes away, the family's allowed to go out, prepare for the funeral and bring in a shomer. He won't let anybody. The boy began speaking and said, Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, it is surely written in the Torah, when you happened upon a bird's nest by the road, you shall surely send away the mother and then take the offspring for yourself. Ribono shel olam, why did you not fulfill this commandment from Torah? Right? Here we have a child mourning the death of his father, and he looks to this verse about the baby birds and the mama bird. For my father and mother had two children, myself and my younger sister. You should have taken us instead of them in compliance with the Torah's command. Right? Because what does Torah say? You shall surely take the offspring and leave the mother. And should you argue, Ribono shel olam, that it is written mother and not father in this case, my mother has already died. And you've already taken her from her offspring. But now you've taken my father, who was our protector, away from his offspring as well. What has become of the law of your Torah? Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Abba and the companions heard the boy's words. They began to weep. Why? Because he's right. And he's mourning. And he's in grief. Now, in what world does it make sense for the children to die before the parents? None. But there's something in this verse of Torah that seems to cut against that. You're not going to like this response. Because the story is asking the question, God, can you justify this? How can you explain to me the justness of taking the parents when the verse says you should take the children? So Rabbi Elazar, when they're holding the boy, says, the height of the heavens and the depth of the earth and the hearts of kings are unfathomable. Marilyn is nodding knowingly. What does it mean for you? Yeah. Correct. We can't understand God's will. God's will is unfathomable. I'm sorry to say, I don't like it. Right. right? I mean, listen, mortality is challenging. Mortality is difficult. Mortality is a fact of life. Right? So we don't question mortality. And we hate it when our loved ones die. We are grieved when our loved ones die. There is a reading that we often read during our Yizkor service, that I'm going to paraphrase, that says, what if we could make a deal that there would not be any more death? But in exchange, there would not be any more life either. No more children, no more next generation. Is it any question what we would do? Right? We would not take that. Because new life is more important than preventing death. But this is the reality of life, is that with life comes death. Death is a part of it. And so the children are struggling in grief, and they're saying, you know, and I'm sure you've experienced with some people who lose a loved one, and the one of their coping mechanisms is to say, it should have been me and not them. Right? Which is a deep, deep, deep act of love for that person. But if we put on our cold, sterile eyes and ears, it's perverse. It's perverse to want to put yourself in the situation of someone who was dead. It's perverse. That person died because that person. Right? Now, the deaths that are untimely, the deaths that themselves seem like a perversion of that death is a part of life, those are the ones that we hold on to. The young deaths, the traumatic deaths, the tragic deaths, those are the ones that feel like there's something wrong here, where we can lean maybe a little bit into the idea that the ways of God are unfathomable, right? Someone lives a long and full life, and they don't suffer very long, and their suffering is shortened by a quick death. The family is grieved, and they say, and I'll be okay. I'm already okay. I was listening, I'm preparing some things for the holidays and talking about trauma and grief. And there's a lot of suggestion that the majority of people, there's a statistic that when people have a loss, we experience grief. Most people experience grief. But most of the grief that we experience will resolve essentially on its own with time. Only about 10% of people need an intervention, a therapeutic intervention, right? They get into prolonged grief and they struggle for the wound to actually heal itself. But that for most people with grief, right? Especially when it's grief that is grieving of the thing that you wish didn't happen, but was the appropriate thing to happen, like a 92-year-old having a life come to an end, that grief is going to heal itself on its own time. And love and support around, but not needing the grieved person doesn't need help to get better. Right? It's different, right? Opposite story. When I was in college, a friend of mine's older sister, for those of you from Chicago might remember that in 2003, there was a big tragedy where there were a bunch of young adults that were in a 3-story apartment building, and there was the back balconies, and there was a collapse. And one of my friend's older sisters, it was her and her fiance's apartment was the top story, and she perished in that accident. He survived. He just stepped into the apartment, the thing collapsed. She perished. This was 20 years ago. The mother has yet to live. She walks around every day like it's the day she will die, which is tragic on a lot of levels. My heart breaks for her. My heart breaks for the younger brother, my friend, who has never been able to feel his mother's love because she preeminences the loss of his sister over everything he's done in his life. Not intentionally, but yeah.
My mother, she lost my dad, then I started finding her and they were married for 5 years. And he died in hospice, and it's been 10 years in November, and every time I talk to her, she's like, it's like it's like And
And is she in any kind of therapeutic relationship?
she tried to put her in therapy and she's like, I'm not doing this.
And she's choosing, in some ways, this is the life that she wants to live. So there are unfathomablenesses, but there are not, but this scenario, pushes against it because, listen, is it tragic to be a child who has lost both your parents? Of course it is. Isn't it also what all of us want from our lives? Right? At a certain, never in that moment, but what's the alternative to me losing both of my parents? Me go before them. Love you, mom and dad. I'd prefer not. Right? So this situation, like, we don't know the ages. I mean, young son can be relative, right? And anyone know the name of the mourner's cottage in Hebrew? It's called Kadisha Tom. No. Yatom, anyone know what Yatom means? It means orphan. It's the orphan's cottage. To be said by people who lost their parents. That's the origins of that notion. None of us want to be an orphan. All of us, if we think about it sterilely, coldly, clinically, want to be orphans. At a certain, I mean, listen, if you want to live into your 75 and you die with your mother when she's 98, okay. If you can cook that up, like that's, but I would say if mom was 98, I would live 98, right? Like there's something there that's missing if you were not living without your parents at some points in your life. That reality is true alongside the reality of grieving the loss of your parents. Right? And let's not forget, the loss of the parent is in our tradition the most tragic of all losses. That's why you mourn for them for 11 months as opposed to just 1 month. As you mourn for a spouse or a sibling, or even a child. So the pain of this child is true and real, and yet it's upending something. I just don't like Rabbi Laila Haas teaching it yet. I mean, I know it comes from Proverbs, and yes, there's a lot about the world and the universe that is unfathomable to us. But why God chose not to kill the child before the parent, to me, is pretty fathomable, actually. The answer is because it's the way of things. And maybe we're not birds. Two more. Chizkuni. 13th century. France. Meredith, don't get any ideas of it.
Okay, like, don't tell your mother, what he's trying to say.
Or your father, for that matter.
Whatever.
You must not take the mother bird with its young ones. It would be an act of cruel insensitivity, comparable to cooking the kid in the milk of its mother. Something the Torah has repeatedly forbidden. Deuteronomy, as well as the prohibition to slaughter, even as a sacrifice, a mother cow together with its calf on the same day. Our author considers the requirement that the fruit of one's vineyard, even after 4 years, may consumed by the owner only in Jerusalem. Also in a category intended to teach us how not to give into the urge of indulging in drinking wine. Okay. A very, very different approach from Chizkuni, right? How does he read this verse? As a warning against what? Gluttony, indulgence, right? Take the mother, take the little ones, don't take both. Don't mix the mother and her kids, the mother's milk and the kid. Don't sacrifice 2 animals from the same family on the same day. Wait for your grapes. Be patient. There will be other birds. There will be other nests. How do I know this? I don't know.
Why is this foolish?
It's not.
Must be the wrong place.
This is Parsha perspective. You can throw it. Anyone know what the Tanya is? So it's the Chabad text, yeah. Right? 18th century, towards the end, Shlomo Eliade. Okay. These emotions are man's creations, products of his efforts. They are results of intellectual endeavor, not gift or heritage. He is to mediate profoundly and with concentration on the greatness of God. And through his intellectual comprehension, arouse a sense of intellectual reverence and love on rational grounds. This love is that of the verse, to love Adonai your God, God is your life. God will not be content with the endowed latent love alone. So too with fear of God and terror or shame, as is known. This is the import of the idea of the mother crouching over the chest. Spencer got it. I saw your face.
I understand logical reasons, but I like it.
So I see a connection between Chizkuni and the Tanya here. Okay? On the one hand, the verses like love your God, God is your life, those ones. There is a grandness, a vastness, an unboundedness to our love for God. And we need to make it rational. Right? He said, Tanya says, arouse a sense of intellectual reverence and love on rational grounds. It's not just faith, it's faith turned into like, this is a practical thing in my life. My reverence for the Holy One is going to have practical impacts upon it. Right? Pause. What is the clearest and most direct way that we can acknowledge and act in response to our love for God? How do we show God our love?
We're here.
We try to walk in the
Follow the mitzvot. Susan Sosa for $500. We follow the mitzvot.
I give it cash.
Yeah. Take a check. You do the things, right? Love and your God, all your heart, all your soul, and your life. Set these words of commanding today, and you do them. That's how we show our love for God. How did God show our God's love for us? What's it?
Well, giving us the
Giving us the words, right? Ahava Rabbah, Ahava Olam. Unending is your love, O God, as you show us through Torah. We show our love back by doing what's in Torah. God will not be content with the endowed latent love alone. So, not only can you need to show God your love, right? Earlier this week, Claire asked me, I think it was Monday. It was just Tammy and Claire and I who were up with one statement. Claire said, what does Machiavellian mean? We came up in her work at school, and she's like, I think I know what it means. Thank God her father studied political theory in college. I could answer that question pretty easily, right? What is the big question that Machiavelli ponders in his work, The Principe, The Prince? Is it better to be loved or feared when you are the king? Right? Now, of course, that is a king of flesh and blood. God doesn't have to ask the question, is it better to be loved or feared? What can God command of us?
Both.
Both. Ahava and yira. Love and fear. So too with fear of God and terror or shame. Right? Just as we should be showing our love for God every single moment, as much as we possibly can, we should also show our fear of God every single moment. And how do we do that? By fulfilling the least important mitzvah, the least difficult mitzvah in Torah. Making sure you shoot away the mother. That the compassion that we show in that moment and our respect for mitzvot as a system, and not worrying about an individual mitzvah as being important or not, but we have bought into the system writ large. is how we show our love for God. And you're the Shemayim and our fear of God as well. I told you it was be silly. Shabbat shalom.
Hello. Bye.
Yeah. And one said
It's